Hello, my name is Leah, welcome back to the channel, and today I will talk about books that I have on my radar again, because since last time I added a lot of books, like all of these and a few more even, and yeah, I just have to talk about them, because this will take forever, and I can't get the list even longer. So yeah, let's just get right into it. The very first book is Red Rabbit by Alex Grecian. I've never read anything by the author, and this is a horror fantasy book set in the Wild West and featuring witches, but also monsters in the Wild West itself, so demons and ghosts that have to be battled. I think that sounds like a very cool combination, and the cover is very cool as well. So yeah, horror fantasy seems to be something that is going to be published more and more. And the synopsis also says that it is written with the devilish cadence of Stephen Graham Jones and the pulse-pounding brutality of Nick Cutter. And yeah, we all know Nick Cutter is known for his more gory stuff, so I'm really excited about this book. So yeah, we have a ragtag posse that must track down a witch through a wild west beset by demons and ghosts, where death is always just around the bend. And yeah, sounds very cool. This comes out in September 19 this year, so it hasn't been published yet. Yeah, the books that I'm going to show you are published in all kinds of times, like some of them haven't been published, some just have been published a few months ago, and others are classics that I just put on my list of books that I'm interested in to check out in the future, but I don't own any of them yet. So yeah, we have that one. Let's see what's next. Oh, the next book is a short story collection by Marjorie M. Leo called The Tangaroot Palace. This came out in June 2021, so a older book, and Marjorie M. Leo is known for her graphic novels called Monstrous, right here, which I'm also interested in but haven't read. And this is a horror fantasy short story collection by her, which sounds like, again, a very nice combination. So we have a body-stealing sorceress, we have an apprentice witch, and a world powered by crystal skulls, a warrior returning to save China from an invasion, a princess running away from her arranged marriage. So we have all kinds of interesting stuff in here that sound very intriguing, and this has a very beautiful cover as well. And Titan Book says this cover, I love them both. Let's see, the next one is a horror book about a mansion. Well, I don't know if it's a mansion, but it's an estate from the puzzle master Alexei Vasilyev, and we have 6 strangers that are invited there to earn money, basically the will of Alexei Vasilyev. And this is a horror book, not a mystery, fun, riddle solving book. I don't know if you know Duncan Rolston. He has written books like Womb, Ghostland or Gross Out, which are very gory books, very much extreme horror. So I'm expecting not a thriller, but horror from Puzzle House by him. And I just love escape rooms. I also love the movie, just the first one though. And yeah, just a house that you can't escape or where weird stuff is happening, I'm all here for it. And we have 6 strangers who are very interesting indeed, because we have the deceased's widow who has already begun divorce proceedings, but then we also have a virologist who's troubled by actions in his past And we have a convicted murderer on day release. What? Who is just in there with 5 other strangers. And yeah, they can earn $150 million of fortune if they participate. So they can either leave the house with nothing or continue in the hope of solving 6 interconnecting escape rooms within the house. I think that sounds amazing. So they learn that it's more deadlier, a deadly game created by a gleeful sadist or something far more sinister. Maybe even some Saw vibes in there, who knows. Could be very, very cool. I also love the cover, like the perspective is really interesting. To see the people from above and this white skull in the background. Very interesting. And this also will come out September on the 15th this year. And his books are mostly on Kindle Unlimited as well. If you have that, it's basically for free to read the stories. The next book is a book by Elizabeth Fremantle, Disobedient, and Elizabeth Fremantle is known for very, very good historical fiction, and this is historical fiction as well. I think it has a very, very lovely cover with a interesting color combination. It just, I don't know, it works in this one. I think it has the historical vibe and the modern vibe in it. It also has this cover, if you like that more. This is set in Rome in the 1600s, which again is a setting that I love. I love the time period and Rome for sure. And this is about a artist, a female artist, Artemisia Gentileschi, who should be someone who really existed. I'm pretty sure I know the name and also some art by her. So yeah, she's living in a family where all the men and the boys are painters and not the women, of course. She's not supposed to be an artist, but she very much wants to be, instead of doing the dutiful wifey stuff. So yeah, she patiently goes from lesson to lesson, perfecting her craft, and she also paints in private, recreating the women who inspire her, which I think sounds very interesting. And then a mysterious tutor enters her life called Tassi, and for a moment he represents everything that a life of freedom might offer, but then the unthinkable happens. Dun dun dun. So in the eyes of her family she should just accept her fate, but in the eyes of the law she's a villain. But she's a survivor and this is her story to tell. Yeah, sounds, as it says, very feministic, and I don't know. I think it sounds interesting, but I do love art and historical fiction, and I know a lot of people do not. This came out in July this year, so not a new release, but new-ish. And yeah, I'm just really excited. I own a lot of Elizabeth Fremantle books, but I haven't read a single one yet. But I've heard amazing things, like very outstanding stuff about historical fiction stories. Next up should be a historical fiction book as well. The Future by Adam Thirlwell has this pretty cover and also this one with the woman on the swing, which is from a well-known painting if you know it. So this is set in 1775 in the beginning, I guess, because this spans all kinds of centuries, from colonial America to this very moment and to the moon. This is a historical novel like no other, it says on here, and I love stuff that is set over a lot of centuries, following all kinds of characters and histories. For example, Cloud Atlas by David Mitchell did something similar and I really loved it. So we have Celine in the 18th century, and she's pretty much alone, just inventing, and other men are inventing stories about her, about affairs, sexuality, orgies, how do you pronounce that, and addictions, and Of course, all the stories are lies, but the public loves gossip and spreads them like a virus. And she only can watch as her name becomes a symbol for everything rotten. This society ruled by men, high on colonial genocide, natural destruction, and crimes against women. So she and her friends band together in search of justice, truth, and beauty. And yeah, sounds like a feminist book as well. But I think it sounds interesting. Who knows if it's good? I can only tell if I read the book. And next up is also a historical fiction book, which is, I mean, it has this beautiful cover and also these ones. And it's called The Other Side of Mrs. Wood by Lucy Barker. Also sounds a little bit literary. And this is for fans of The Lost Apothecary or The Mermaid and Mrs. Hancock. I've only read Mermaid and Mrs. Hancock, but I'm very much interested in Lost Apothecary. And yeah, I did enjoy the Mermaid book. It was very interesting and well told historical fiction book, very atmospheric. And this says that it is atmospheric as well, so I can believe that for sure. This is about Victorian London and about 2 female mediums in it. And yeah, I mean, it's set in the time where spiritualism was pretty much something that was very hyped up, you could say, in high society. And yeah, it just follows the rivalry between these 2 female mediums, and I think that sounds really interesting. This could also have a fantastical twist in it, because it says that there are rumors from America of mediums materializing false spirits. How long will her audiences be content with quivering tables and candle theatrics? She hears that most horrifying of sounds, a yawn. When a sweet girl with an uncanny talent for the craft turns up at her door, Mrs. Wood decides that a protege will be just the thing to spice up her brand. But is Emmy Finch indeed the naive ingenue she appears? Or has Mrs. Wood's own downfall come knocking at last? I think it sounds very interesting, very different from a lot of historical fiction books set in Victorian London, so yeah, I'm really interested in that. It has been published in June, if I didn't say that already, so it has come out already. Next up is again a book that spans centuries. Starts out as a historical fiction book, but I think it does take place in contemporary times as well. This is just about a single house in the woods of New England, and the story is told through all the people that will live there through time or over time, across centuries it says here. So yeah, sounds like a very calm and philosophical book, just about different glimpses of life and about humanity itself. I don't know what to expect, but I think it does sound interesting. So we have the young lovers that abscond from a Puritan colony, and they inhabited the cabin in the woods first. And then we have an English soldier who abandoned the battlefield to devote himself to apples. I don't know why, but I mean, go for it. I support you and your apple stuff. And then we have a pair of spinster twins surviving war and famine, only to succumb to envy and desire. We have a crime reporter unearthing a mass grave, but finding the ancient trees refusing to give up their secrets. I don't know if these ancient trees and the apple stuff is connected, but could be. A lovelorn painter, a conman, a stalking panther, and yeah, all kinds of mysteries. I think the dark, raucous, beautiful past is very much alive. Dun, dun, dun. So yeah, could be cool. Connected to our environment and to one another across time, language, and space. Sounds like literary fiction here, it says down here as well. And yeah, I love that cover. It also has this cover right here, and the book will be published in September 2023. Next up we have Orbital, which is a science fiction book written by Samantha Harvey, and it's pretty short, but that is because it just takes place on one single day, told from 3 different people, 6 women and men, that are hurtling through space, but not towards some kind of planet or the unknown. No, they are orbiting around our planet. So we have people from America, Russia, Italy, Britain and Japan, and they have left their lives behind to travel at a very fast speed around the Earth. And this book is just about the tiny moments of their lives through communications with family, their photos, talismans, and yeah, just eating, floating, exercising, forming bonds between each other. So yeah, sounds very, very nice for in between other books, just about humanity, environment, our planet, Earth, and all that kind of stuff. Yeah, meditative, and yeah, I don't know. It depends on the writing style, if I like it or not, but in the synopsis, the writing style does sound very nice. And it's just different from other books, so I'm interested in it. And the next one is an anthology, so it's written by all kinds of authors, and it's a short story collection by all of these people. It says it's an Indigenous dark fiction anthology, so we have Indigenous horror stories and also some fantasy in there, I think, and an introduction by Stephen Graham Jones. And all of these authors, so the book is 400 pages long, so we have a lot of authors. I only know 2 of them, so I love that. I love discovering new authors in the way of reading anthologies. I only know Darcy Little Badger and Rebecca Roanhorse off the bat. And this is about never whistling at night, because there are many Indigenous people that believe that you shouldn't do that because of different things. So we have, for example, Native Hawaiians who believe that this would summon the Hukaibo, spirits of ancient warriors, and the Native Americans believe that it calls Lechusa, I don't know, a witch that can transform into an owl. So yeah, just evil spirits that appear if you whistle at night, who can follow you home, and I think that sounds interesting. It's about Indigenous people's survival and imagination, and about ghosts, curses, hauntings, monsters, family legacies, deeds, and revenge. And it says at the beginning here, are you ready to be unsettled? I love that. That's a very, very nice play with words. And this is also going to be published in September this year. And has only this one cover, but it is very pretty. It doesn't need any more than that. And the next up is an illustrated book, Caldera, I don't know, by Susan Helmick, and this is about a world where magic is forgotten, but the people are on the verge of a revolt against their monarchy, class system dividing the poor from the rich, but a spark of magic may tip the scales of society. So the story is divided over 3 books, and it starts in the ancient fortified city of Esmera, which is a safe haven after which the war on magic has nearly killed the entire human population on the planet. Sounds like a great way to start a story, I think. The setting sounds interesting, and the war on magic, which is now over, sounds all very, very cool. And we have different people that the story follows. So we have Nina the Dreamer, Rodgar the Bastard Prince, Boris the Mysterious and Ancient Prisoner, and Rolfan the Rebel. And their narratives will be intertwined because they cross paths and form bonds of friendship or rivalry. And this is how the cover looks like, and as I've said, this is illustrated. It has also come out in 2020, so not a new release. And there should be a website just about the book. If you're interested in the illustrations, you can just go to caldera.com. This video is not sponsored, it's just what I saw when I was looking up some illustrations, and I think these look absolutely beautiful. So yeah, there's that. Then the next one is a short story which is only available as an ebook. I think even only on Kindle, because this is part of Amazon Original Stories. They regularly come out with these stories, and they have all kinds of authors just contributing to one of these. So this is called the Far Reaches series, and we have, I think, six authors contributing to these science fiction stories. It says right here, it's part of the Far Reaches, a collection of science fiction stories that stretch the imagination and open the heart. And yeah, these are very short, about 30 to 40 pages each, and they came out at the end of June this year, so yeah, already available. And these are all very well-known authors. Like, we have a story by James S.A. Corey, who wrote Leviathan Wakes on right here. We have Veronica Roth, Rebecca Roanhorse, and Laggy, Nelly Okorafor, and John Scalzi. So yeah, all of them are very, very well known, and I do like to read them from time to time. There are some hits, some misses in these collections, but they are always very short and have very interesting premises. And then the next one, oh geez, is a book by Ruby Dixon, who wrote the Iceplanet Barbarian series. And this is a series which is also fantasy romance, but this doesn't have science fiction in it. It just follows gods in a fantasy world. So we have our main character, who's a normal human, and she hears weird noises from her neighbors, so she goes and investigates these, and she falls into a portal and into this fantasy world where men carry swords and gods walk the earth, and then she's enslaved within minutes of arriving there, of course. Fun place, yeah. Ruby Dixon's books are just very entertaining in between. They are not masterpieces in any way, but I do like to read them. And yeah, this is just about this butcher god of battle, Aaron, and our main protagonist, who's a female with a name I don't know. And I mean, they try to get out of there, and they don't like each other at all, but I guess they fall in love eventually. And yeah, as I said, it's an older series from 2019. It has only 4 books in it now. I don't know if it's completed or not. And yeah, I don't know. I think it does sound interesting, but I have no idea if it's good or not. Then the next book is a mermaid book. This is young adult with a very beautiful cover, and this is about a main character who has a curse in her family where they are born without mermaid tails but with legs. So yeah, she sets on a journey to do something against that, because they just don't fit in with the merfolk if they don't have a tail, and she just doesn't want that anymore for her family. But I think this is taking place underwater for the whole or most of the book at least. So yeah, I do love that if mermaid books are set underwater actually, and not just on land. And yeah, the Lost Island of Atlantis is in there as well. Could be very interesting if it's done nicely. But I don't know, I have some doubts because it's young adult. But who knows, maybe it's good, maybe not. And then we also have some lost treasure that some guy is searching. I think the best friend of our main protagonist. So he goes on a quest himself. Could be very cool. It's also a standalone, which is nice. And the next book is not a standalone, it's a trilogy, and the first book has come out again in 2019, so not a new book, but this is also about mermaids. It's about, I don't know if it's historical fiction or just a fantasy world, because these people sound very much historical, like we have Isaura Johansdottir and King Eger, but maybe it's just a fantasy world and reminiscent of some historical stuff. So yeah, we have our main protagonist, a woman who has experienced a disastrous end of her marriage, and then there's a shipwreck and she is saved by a merman. Love that. We need more mermen in merfolk books. And yeah, she has to help him to investigate a mysterious and deadly plague that is going around in his folk. And yeah, there are some mysterious storms in here that are ravaging the currents and destroying the sea life, which is also part of the book. And then there's rumors of dark magic. Sounds all very, very interesting indeed. And this is an adult book, so yeah, very much hopeful that this is going to be great. And then we have this one right here, The Djinn Waits 100 Years by Shubnam Khan, which sounds a little more literary fiction, but it says it's horror fantasy and has science fiction in it as well. And this is the beautiful cover. Love it. It is only this cover. And this book comes out in January in the next year, so a lot of time still until this book comes out. And it says it's atmospheric again, which I love. It's about a mansion by the sea and a djinn that haunts it, because this djinn fell in love with someone that lived in the mansion, and then the woman was mysteriously killed, and since then the djinn is haunting the place. And then we also have a curious girl who unearths this tragedy that happened there 300 years earlier. So it sounds gothic and could be nice. I don't know, I'm not the biggest fan of ghost stories, but this takes place in South Africa. We have Djinn in there, and apparently it's atmospheric, and a mansion by the sea, and a curious girl. These all sound like things that I do love in books. So we will just see if I like it or not whenever I buy and pick up the book. Then the next one is To Gaze Upon Wicked Gods, which is also a start to a series. It's written by Molly X. Chang. Very, very beautiful cover. This will come out in April next year, so even later than the last book. And this is a YA book with romance and fantasy in it, and also science fiction. And we have a young woman who is cursed with the power of death, but she's very afraid of using it, actually, because, where does it say? Because the powers will shave years of her own existence, which I think sounds very interesting. And she has to decide between her family, if she wants to save her family, or if she wants to save her country. So, interesting choice right there. We have Ru Ying, so Asian inspired stuff, which is always something that I do like in stories as well. And there are some kind of invaders who have descended from the heavens, and they defeated the magic of her people with technologies. And yeah, she has this ability to pull the life right out of mortal bodies. And then this is discovered by an enemy prince, and she has to work for him. So I don't know, there's probably a romance between the prince and Ru Ying, but yeah, could be very interesting. It has some interesting stuff in there that I'm interested in for sure. The next up, we have A Guest in the House by Emily Carroll, which is a horror graphic novel. And Emily Carroll is known for her graphic novel Through the Woods, right here, which I also have not read, but heard great things, and it's even discussed in universities, or at least in mine. And yeah, this is about a woman who marries a dentist, and the first wife of the dentist died mysteriously. And yeah, it's just about discovering things about this death and about the dentist. And yeah, the art style looks a little like a comic, but could be nice. I mean, it says right here that it's a masterful balance of black and white, surreal colors, rich textures, and dramatic lettering, assured to bring the story to life and giving readers a chill up their spine as they read. Who knows? But it could be cool. And then the next one is I didn't say when this came out. Came out August 15, or will come out. It's not August 15 yet. Then we have The Dryad's Crown by David Hopkins, which is also illustrated by Daniel Irving Desina. And this is a bind-up of all books in the series, so we have books 1 to 9 in it, but it's just 570 pages long, so these books aren't very long individually. And yeah, it's just nice to have a short series in just one book collected together. And yeah, this is fantasy, and it's about Silbray, who returns to a city where she was first taught to kill. I mean, that doesn't sound intriguing, I don't know what will. So she's discovering more to a troubling past, and then something magical and foreboding happens, far beyond the familiar cobble streets. And she will have to decide if she wants to take her revenge against the cruel guildmaster who trained her, or if there's mercy, an option. If there is, what? I can speak English, I promise. Yeah. It says that it begins as a fairy tale and transforms into a multi-generational epic, and a woman with a strange connection to the natural world. So I love fairy tale vibes, love multi-generational stuff if it's done well and in a interesting setting and time, and a strange connection to the natural world. Sounds cool indeed. And yeah, let's check out Amazon, because they tend to have the book with the first few pages in it. This is what it looks like. Okay, it has a map. Nice. And there's an illustration. Yeah, it does look a little like Chris Riddell, so fairy tale vibes for sure. Yeah, I like that. And it's full page, that's cool as well. And where were we? Right here. The next one, Sea of Souls by Ancy Scrimgeour, I don't know, is also a fantasy book, which sounds like an adult book, but I don't know if it is. So we have some strange creatures, dark underneath the water, and we follow Isla Blackwood, who is a seafaring woman, likes to be on the open waters, and then there's a tragedy, so she has to go home again and can't escape her duty that she's been running from, because there are Selkie raiders. So we have Selkie in here, and I love that. That's something that is not very much featured in books a lot. And then she meets an exiled Selkie, and she's working with them. So they have to steal something from the Selkie hunter, and stuff is happening. She's befriending the Selkie, who should have been her enemy, and then she learns that the open seas aren't the only treacherous waters that she will need to navigate. This is also a Star 2 series and came out at the beginning of August this year. I just think that it's interesting. Anything about sea creatures, merfolk, I'm here for. Then the next book is a very old book, but I didn't know of it until a few days ago. This is The Blood of the Vampire by Florence Marryat, which was published in 1897. And yeah, it's a vampire book. And 300 pages long. Nice cover right there, but I mean, it has all kinds of covers by Penguin and whatnot. And yeah, this is about Miss Harriet Brand, who is a daughter of a mad scientist and a voodoo priestess who leaves her home in Jamaica for the first time to travel to Europe. I think that sounds amazing. Mad scientist, voodoo priestess, Jamaica, amazing. But she's not a normal young woman, as everybody who gets close to her becomes ill or even dies. Ooh, yes. Has some bizarre characters in it. Yeah, must read for fans of the genre. I think it sounds amazing. I don't know why it's not talked about more often. And then the next one is also an older book. It's been published in 1896. It's an H.G. Wells book, The Island of Dr. Moreau, just because I want to read it before I read the Silvia Moreno Garcia book, which is based on Dr. Moreau's island. So I heard that it is better to have read this or know about what this is telling to enjoy the Silvia Moreno Garcia book more. So I had to put it on here, and it's very short, 190 pages easy. I've read one H.G. Wells book before, The Invisible Man, and I hated it. So I don't know if I'll enjoy this one, but I think it does sound amazing. So maybe I just had bad luck with Invisible Man. This is again about someone who's shipwrecked and stranded on an island, and meeting a sinister Dr. Moreau, who's a vivisectionist, driven out of Britain in disgrace. Ooh no. Strange events cause our main character to uncover the full horror of Dr. Moreau's activities on the island. Oh jeez. I think that sounds so cool. I love science fiction classics most of the time. So this mixes a discussion on the divide between humans and the animal kingdom, and chilling macabre horror in an unrivaled fashion. Its question on how far science should go is one that rings true today as it did when it was first published. Yeah, I do think that this sounds amazing. So I hope it's good. All kinds of covers with this one as well, of course. They all look very interesting. And then the next one is The Darkness Before Them by Matthew Ward, which looks like a mythology cover, but it's not. It's just a fantasy book. And Matthew Ward wrote the Legacy of Ash book. So maybe you know that one. I, of course, haven't read it, as with most books that I'm interested in. I just can't get to them. But I'm still interested in them, of course. I just have too many books that I'm interested in. This is an action-packed new trilogy, introducing readers to a world ruled by a dangerous immortal king. So maybe we do have some myth, god stuff going on there, I don't know. And in this world, souls fuel magic, and a supernatural mist known as the Veil threatens to engulf the land. I think that sounds very interesting, like a dark fantasy. And then we also have a morally grey main character, which is also something that I really love. And yeah, so dark times for the kingdom of Khalad, magical mists devouring the land, populace struggling beneath the rule of ruthless nobles, and the uncaring immortal king. But then we have Cat, and she doesn't care about any of that. She's a talented thief pursuing one big score to settle the debt that destroyed her family. And yeah, that's not easy in a realm where the spirits hold a vigil over every vault and treasure room. But that's not a problem because Cat can speak to the spirits and she can even command them. Isn't that cool? And she doesn't even have qualms using her power to her advantage, so that's the morally grey stuff going on. As it says, Cat's not a hero, she just wants to be free and have her old life back. But yeah, then we have rebellion going on in Kalad, and everyone has to pick a side. And yeah, it's a start to a series, so I think this is going to be very interesting. This will come out in November this year, so I'm very excited about that one. And the next one is also very interesting. I mean, just the cover alone is absolutely beautiful. And this is a retelling of the Nutcracker. And yeah, it just sounds like the perfect book for Christmas season. We also have this cover right here, but I prefer the other one. It just looks so wintry, whimsical, Nutcracker vibes immediately. So this is just basically a retelling of the Nutcracker, and 370 pages long, so quite long for a retelling of that. And do we know Erika Johansson, or is it a debut? It's the author who wrote The Queen of the Tilling, which I also have, but haven't read yet. Oh man, I need to read more. So, and then we only have 4 more books to go. The Coven by Harper Lee Woods and Adelaide Forest. Again, look at this cover, it's so atmospheric and dark already. This is also a start to a series, and the first book came out in March this year. And it has witches and vampires in it, and also fantasy and romance, of course. So, what was this about again? Oh yeah, it's about this very interesting university. This is also dark academia, I would say. So we have a prestigious Hollows Grove University, where the best and brightest can learn to practice their magic free from human judgment. I think that sounds amazing. And then the headmasters Alaric Grayson Thorne. I mean, Alaric, if you've watched The Vampire Diaries or the originals, you know that Alaric is also a headmaster to a university where vampires and witches, oh geez, can study. Is that a coincidence? I'm not sure. So there's a romance between our main character, who's a new pupil at the university, and the headmaster. Yeah, I'm not sure about that. I don't know if I love that, but could be interesting if it's done well, I guess. And then the dark academia part is because there's a bloody massacre that has happened there just a few decades prior to when the main character is studying at the university. And it's also the first time in 50 years that the Coven will open its wards to the 13, meaning 13 promising students that are destined to change the world, if the ghosts of Hollow Grove's victims don't kill them first. I don't know, it has a lot of stuff in it that I very much enjoy. I just hope that it's not too YA. It doesn't say what it is. Yeah. Depends on the characters really, because the plot and the world sound amazing. And then the next one looks like a mythology book, but it's just a thriller. It has also come out. It's a book from last year, came out in May 2020. 2020? What the fuck? 2022. This is a different cover, maybe you know this one better. And this also has some fantasy in it. It reminded me a lot of The Power by Naomi Alderman. So we follow 3 different women in here who discover that they have a new strange power. And they are doing feminism stuff because they are taking matters into their own hands. They discover some kind of teenager woman, teenage girl, teenager woman. What the fuck am I talking about? They discover the body of a teenage girl, and the police just think that this is a victim of a drug addicted sex worker incident, but the women don't believe in that, and they investigate themselves and they find even more bodies. And yeah, it's about the world of stupendous wealth where the rules don't apply, and they want to change stuff about that. So the characters sound very interesting because we have Nessa James, who is just very much alone because her husband died, her kids are at college, so she doesn't really have anyone at her home, and she's a former nurse, and she begins to start hearing voices. So these are calling out to her, belonging to the dead, and it's a gift that she's inherited from her grandmother, but it also comes with special responsibilities. Sounds very intriguing, and she's in her 40s, I think, in her late 40s. Then we have Harriet Osborne, on the cusp of 50, and yeah, witnessed an implosion of her career and her marriage, and hasn't left her house in months, so from the outside it really looks like she's not tending to herself or her garden, but her life is far from over because she's undergone a stunning and welcome metamorphosis. I don't know if they all have the same power or different ones. It sounds like different ones for sure. So yeah, very intrigued by that, and I love that the main characters are in their middle age, like 40s, 50s. Very, very cool. The third woman is Jo Levison, and she has been at war with her body. The free-floating rage and hot flashes that arrive with the beginning of menopause feel like the very last straw until she realizes she has the ability to channel them and finally comes into her power. Love that. I'm really intrigued by the Jo person. That sounds really, really cool. So yeah, they are investigating the stuff and coming to terms with the power. Really interested in that. And then the last two books, we have Keeper of Enchanted Rooms, which is also a series, which I didn't know. This is something that sounds like a horror book at the beginnings, because we have an estate in Rhode Island, 1846, so it's also historical fiction. But I was always told that this is cozy fantasy with witches. So yeah, I don't know if it really is. Because on this property, things are not very normal. So we have Merritt, who is just inhabiting it for now, and he is ready to call it home until he realizes he has no choice but to do so, because its doors are slamming shut and locking behind him, and the house is not about to let Merritt leave ever. So that's cozy fantasy, okay, interesting. Sounds like horror to me. But then we also have a Boston Institute for the Keeping of Enchanted Rooms, meaning that they are workers who go to houses like this one and making it normal again, I guess. And we follow one of these workers in this institute, so maybe that's where the cozy stuff is happening. I don't know, but I think that it sounds very unique, very interesting, very funny as well. I don't know if it is, but it does sound like that. And then it has also been published already. I forgot to say that. And then we also have this one. This is also an older book from 2012, and it's by the author who wrote Starving Anonymous, which I just read a few days ago. And yeah, I finished that series. So yeah, I was just interested in what the author also wrote, and I discovered this manga series, which is about a prison, and then a van is crashing into the facility and there were zombies in the van. So yeah, just your basic zombie apocalypse, but Yukaraishi did write very gruesome horror stuff in the Starving Anonymous series, so I think this is going to be very, very interesting, even though it's older than Starving Anonymous. But yeah, I love zombie books, so yeah, very much intrigued by it. And then he also has a series which takes place after Starving Anonymous, which I didn't know, and this has only been published like 2 years ago, the first volume, and I think it's not completed yet. So yeah, again, a series that I haven't really finished because it takes place like a few years or months after the end of Starving Anonymous. And yeah, I can't really spoil what this is about, but if you've read Starving Anonymous and didn't know of that, really read the synopsis because it sounds bonkers again. But yeah, I love his horror ideas and really excited about these two series. So yeah, we have caught up with all of my books that I added onto my radar or in my Goodreads list, whatever you want to call it. And yeah, I know the video is quite long, but there were a lot of books in it as well. I hope you enjoyed it nevertheless, and maybe found something interesting that you didn't know before. And yeah, I'll hope to see you in my next video. And until then, take care, happy reading, and bye!